We're good? Okay. Welcome to the June 1st business meeting and our retiree recognition. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two point four is the reiteration of executive session motions. Sue.
The board met in executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular person or persons.
So welcome to our second to last board meeting of the school year. I'm not counting or anything. I feel like we've blinked and now it's June. I have just a few thoughts to share as we have a very full meeting tonight. So tonight, fortunately, is another celebratory type of meeting in nature. We'll be honoring 7 very special staff members who will be retiring at the end of the year. This night is always bittersweet as we celebrate the successful careers of these individuals, reflect on all they have contributed to our schools, and as we toast them when they enter their new chapters and exit their Pelham chapter. Shifting to our students, I want to personally congratulate Liam Ginsberg, who is the first male from our high school to win the Roger Rees Award as Best Actor in the metropolitan area for his performance in Bright Star. This is quite an accomplishment for a freshman and for the Sock and Buskin program. Oliver Tam also made it to the finals, so it's been a truly successful year for everybody involved. I also want to congratulate our boys varsity lacrosse team for winning the Section 1 Class C championship. They're currently on rain delay in the sub-regional game at Hen Hud, winning 6-0. With a kid on the team, it's hard not to be there in person tonight to cheer them on, but I'll be rooting for them in spirit and hoping for some more score updates along the way. I hate to close such a happy night on a somber note, but I did want to extend thoughts and prayers to the parents and family members who lost loved ones in the shooting in Texas last week. Watching the events at Robb Elementary School unfold in the news has been nothing short of heartbreaking. It seems that each school violence event heightens our ongoing awareness and concerns about the safety of our schools. We are so grateful for our school administrators, security and hall monitors, and for our school safety consultants at Altaris who work tirelessly to ensure our students are safe each day. I'm also thankful for the collaborative relationship the district has with our local police departments and for their willingness to provide support and/or increase security at our campuses whenever it's needed. With regular walkthroughs at the middle school and high school campuses, as well as assistance for our safety drills in each of our buildings, our local police are great allies to the district. I think it's important to say that in my district, as my experience as a board member, I've been comforted by watching our district be proactive, reflective, and adaptive when it comes to school safety. It's through tragic events that life really comes into focus, reminding us to make the most of the time we have and to cherish the happy times like nights such as this one. So, the next section is section 3, which is approval of the minutes. I'd like to take a motion to approve the business meeting minutes of May 18th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Leah, a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vinnie. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Dr. Champ, it's your superintendent's report. I'm sorry to steal a little of your thunder, but like with the kid on the lacrosse team and knowing Liam Ginsberg, I had to do a personal shout out to both of them, so.
No, that's great, and I just want to piggyback on kind of where Jessica left off, expressing as well, just thoughts for our colleagues, and I just want to pick up where Jessica left off, and our thoughts and prayers are with our colleagues and with the families in Uvalde. Every time we have a situation like this as well, it really hits very close to home and gives us great pause. And so I just appreciate the efforts of all of our staff throughout this week that despite those real feelings of, our own personal safety and worry for our schools, that they doubled down on their efforts for our students. And even, sending their own children off to school so they could come to work. Even that was really challenging in these days. And they did it just with an outstanding professionalism and commitment to the work that they do each day. Jim, I know, is assembling the safety committee, so we can certainly take our lessons learned from this most recent and continue with the efforts. And I as well, just appreciate the efforts that he and the safety team and the committee have really undertaken this year. Working with Alteris has been a great addition to our practices and protocols. They bring great expertise that we continue to learn from. So we'll be looking just to see ways that we can continue to evolve our safety practices. Appreciate that. I started to try to compile a list of all the many things that are going on this time of year, and it's just about impossible to do that without missing something incredible happening in each of our schools. Just a few highlights that I know I'm hoping that folks are taking advantage of watching not just our principals' newsletters, but looking at our calendar and seeing the incredible events that are happening around the district. It was so exciting to finally have the Science Research Symposium in person again. I think our seniors were freshmen last time we did that, something like that. It was incredible. Full house, hundreds of people, just an incredible night. So thank you to Mr. Baltekis, Mr. DeBello, Dr. Callahan, and all the folks that put that together, and to our students who were just did an amazing job. We're looking forward to highlighting many of our science scholars at our next board meeting too. So I'll be working with Dr. Callahan to assemble that list. I know we also have STEAM Day coming up in that realm, so another opportunity to highlight the work of the classroom teachers with our students and all the great accomplishments. We also this week got to attend the Unified Basketball last game of the season, which was really just amazing. We continue to have really big audiences for that, and the kids are just so engaged and involved. Love that. And once the game finished, you could walk outside and enjoy the Battle of the Bands, because there's something going on just about every night at the high school. So it was a really great evening. We had perfect weather for both. We've had pasta nights. We've got concerts. We've got the middle school production has happened since I think last time we met. We've got, as you said, sports postseason, incredible accomplishments going on. We had 5th grade field day at Glover, again, the first time in a couple of years for that, and that was just a blast to watch. Spring flings. We've got our kindergarten orientations going on, and story times and things like that. So there are a tremendous amount of activities. I encourage everyone to keep an eye on the calendar, on the announcements, so you can come and enjoy the great events. And it's been wonderful to just have things basically feel as normal as they can, as normal as they have in a couple of years. I'm not going to go any further into that tonight because I want us to get to our main feature. So I do think before we dive into tonight's really bittersweet event of recognizing our retirees, we did have one initial recognition that we wanted to move into first, though, another bittersweet one as well. And that is recognition of our former superintendent who recently passed away, Dr. Charles T. Wilson. We have had, we're very saddened to hear of Charlie's passing. He was an incredible, we talked about it last board meeting, just an incredible leader, educator, and human being. We've had a small committee of folks that have come together to plan some events to honor him. I know Rosemary's been part of that, Lynn Sabia, Maria Thompson, Maria Caravellano, Scott Brown, and a number of other folks that have been meeting since then to put together a variety of activities. So just wanted to share a couple of those things with the community and with the board to work us towards a resolution that we're going to ask the board to pass tonight. So just by way of announcing that, I think we've put this out via email. We've done a save the date. We'll be doing additional emails. But this coming Monday, June 6th, we're inviting the community to come to join us in front of Pelham Memorial High School at 3:30 as we gather to celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Charles T. Wilson, who passed away last month. At the event, he will be remembered by several colleagues, friends, and folks that he worked with here in the district, including former administrators, teachers, Board of Education members, and a variety of other folks. We will have light refreshments served as well. If it's raining, then we'll move into the auditorium, but our hope is to have it right outside in the circle drive by the flagpole in the middle of the cherry trees, which we learned from Dr. Laura was one of Dr. Wilson's favorite places to be. So we hope folks can join us then. Our committee also reached out to Mr. Berkowitz, principal of the high school, with the idea of asking that we formally rename the Olympics. And I think most folks in the room probably know Dr. Wilson was the driving force behind the Olympics, his belief in school spirit and really uniting the grade levels and uniting the students across the district. He was the inspiration and the driving force behind the Olympics that we still, decades later, are celebrating and that are a key tradition. So the request came forward to the high school to consider formally naming the Olympics in his honor. And so thank you to Mr. Berkowitz and to the SA, who agreed to officially rename the Olympics to the Dr. Charles T. Wilson Olympics going forward. So thank you to them. Very excited about that. So this will be the first one officially named that. And then that brings us to tonight, where in addition, the committee thought that we wanted to ask the board to consider a resolution in Dr. Wilson's honor, and that resolution not just to recognize him, but then also to declare this June 10th, which is the day of this year's Dr. Charles T. Wilson Olympics, as Dr. Charles T. Wilson Day for our district. And then to be just to really do a district-wide celebration and recognition of his life. So that is the resolution that's on the agenda for the board to consider tonight. I'll pass it to Jessica to read that and take the motions. And
I'm hearing that we don't officially vote
Discussion.
on it, but
no, oh,
we
all right.
could, just for
We don't have to,
formality.
but
We can. Okay, so I'm going to read the resolution. Whereas Dr. Charles T. Wilson served the Pelham Union Free School District from 1968 to 2008 as a teacher, I'm going to say school counselor, not guidance counselor, administrator, and ultimately superintendent of schools. And whereas in Dr. Wilson's 12-year tenure as superintendent of schools, he championed the district and demonstrated leadership and compassion that positively impacted all of the district's students and staff, and indeed the Pelham community as a whole. And whereas Dr. Wilson embraced the importance of teaching the whole child, and in addition to advancing the district's vision for excellence in academics, was a strong supporter of all extracurricular activities and was visible at many school events, including plays and athletics. And whereas school spirit and relationships were paramount to his vision for the district, Dr. Wilson created the Pelham Memorial High School Olympics, an annual event and rite of passage that still exists to this day. And whereas Dr. Wilson's love for the Pelham community was evident to those who worked with him either on the Board of Education, as an employee of the district, or as a member of the various parent and community organizations. And whereas the Board of Education desires to dedicate a day for the Pelham community to celebrate Dr. Wilson's life and work, now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Pelham Union Free School District declares June 10th, 2022, Dr. Charles T. Wilson Day, and directs the superintendent to ensure that the greater Pelham community is aware of this designation to allow the full community to join in the celebration of Dr. Wilson.
Gladly.
Very nice.
Very nice. Just out of curiosity, how many of the folks sitting in our audience knew Dr. Wilson? I had a feeling there'd be a lot of hands in the air. There you go. The legacy lives on. So, great. Very happy to deliver that message to the community, and really excited to be putting this together. So thank you to Rosemary, to Lynn, to Maria, to Maria, and the other folks involved in planning. It's been a labor of love from people who really respected and knew him personally. So.
Great. So now we get to move to the honor of the
Yes.
night, to the retiree
Yes.
recognition.
Yep, and with that, I'm going to move over to the other microphone. Okay, so our last board meeting was one of the beginning milestones. We talked about the gauntlet of getting hired, the milestone of achieving tenure as one of those stops along the way. And then tonight we're here to really to recognize the bittersweet one. That is amazing for those folks who have reached this level, but is sad for all of us to see them go. We always appreciate and are so excited to have family here, to have our administrators here, and have colleagues here to celebrate the careers of these distinguished educators. The folks that we are honoring tonight represent a combined 159 years of service to the Pelham Public Schools. That is When I first came to Pelham, I was told this is a place when people come, they stay, and this class of retirees absolutely demonstrates that. And I have to say, we always talk, people always talk about going out on a high note. People who have survived these last 2 years, this is absolutely the mic drop, high note of your careers, because this has been the hardest 2 years in education. So thank you as a group. Thank you for your incredible efforts to get our children and our families and our colleagues and one another through these last 2 years with such outstanding excellence, professionalism, and commitment. So we're going to go ahead and dive into things here in no particular order. So I'm going to read a little bit about each person, then invite them up, and the administrator that will be speaking about them in more detail. So we're going to kick things off on I think we're going to start on the south end of town. Our first retiree this evening has taught at Prospect Hill for the past 26 years, where she's taught kindergarten through 3rd grade. She was critical in transitioning so many of our youngest into kindergarten, their first experience with our schools, and giving them a strong foundation to move up through elementary school. Her expertise has served as a source of comfort for many of our families. She understands the importance of academics while also making sure that children learn through play. She's got an incredibly welcoming classroom. Every time I was in the building, she opened her arms and her doors wide and invited me to come in, always offered me back for a cup of coffee and a chat whenever I wanted, which I unfortunately didn't have enough time to take her up on. But I'm very pleased to recognize and invite forward Gail Geller and Principal Janine Koch.
It is my privilege to deliver this speech to pay tribute to the 26 years that Gail Geller has devoted to teaching here in Pelham. Her career has certainly been a successful one. The most beautiful proof of this is the joy and wisdom she has imparted to her students in the teaching of not just kindergarten, where she began and now ends her career, but also 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade at Prospect Hill. Many of our faculty and staff have been reflecting on how different our building will be when Gail retires. With great emotion, her colleague Julie described Gail as someone who's deeply rooted in her faith. Her faith has been a source of calm and comfort, not only to her students, but to their parents as well. Gail uses her years of experience as a teacher and a mother to recognize the importance of celebrating the children's accomplishments and building their self-esteem. It is important to her that she teaches them reading, writing, math, science, and social studies, but she also knows how valuable it is to make sure they learn how to show kindness, friendship, love, and citizenship towards their classmates. I recently received an email where a family member of one of Gail's kindergarten families wrote, "My son is usually such a homebody and doesn't want to leave my side, but on weekends he's saying how excited he is to go to school on Monday." Another parent wrote, "My child just seems so happy, and I can really tell from the little stories he relays to me at night how much he is learning. The classroom environment seems like exactly what I wanted for him his kindergarten year, a good mix of fun and learning, excitement, discipline, and socializing." With deep gratitude, another family wrote to me and said, "Our daughter has been really enjoying her time in kindergarten, and this is thanks to Mrs. Geller. She has become an avid reader and writer and enjoys math as well." So there. She was home all of what would have been her pre-K years due to the pandemic, and her transition back to school has been going really well because of Mrs. Geller. She has helped with instilling a sense of independence and responsibility. When visiting Gail's classroom, you could always find her either reading a story to the kids, engaging in a fun movement break or song with them, or at her small group table, which she could not wait to get back in her room when the COVID protocol shifted. Gail knows the importance of small group work and individualized instruction and made sure it consistently remains a part of her routine. And even with all that, she still helped to maintain our 5th grade buddy program, where all of our 5th graders are connected to a kindergarten classroom, and they worked alongside them throughout the year. She's been our STEAM coach representative, and of course, she always made time to save time for the kindergarten gala, which is such a highly anticipated kindergarten event and tradition that families really do hold so dear. Gail, I am so happy to be here and be able to give you this night of celebration and to wish you happiness for the new life that opens up to you. The body of work you have given over the course of 26 years, the praise of every teacher you have worked with and mentored over the years, and most importantly, the positive impact you have had on countless families can only be the dream of all future retirees. You have helped so many students read and write, but you've also made them wonder, question, and explore. And now it's your time to discover and enjoy the world of retirement. Enjoy every minute. Congratulations, and we will miss you.
Okay, Ms. Carr, don't go far. Our next retiree has worked at Prospect Hill for the past 20 years. She's taught both first and fourth grade. She's extremely detail-oriented and organized. She's dedicated to her colleagues, grade-level partners, and always willing to help out and do her part as needed. I saw that firsthand these last 2 years as this teacher participated eagerly on our reopening committee, which was lots of new territory to cover in very challenging times. So we're very pleased tonight to honor and recognize Ms. Janet Hoynes. So we invite her to be recognized.
It gives me great pleasure to celebrate and honor the retirement of Janet Hoynes. 20 years ago, Janet came to teaching from a background in the business world. She spent her first 14 years teaching first grade and these final 6 years teaching fourth grade at Prospect Hill. If you ever worked with Janet as a colleague, a grade level partner, or as Dr. Champ said, on a district committee, you know that she's extremely detail-oriented, organized, and always very, very professional. Ms. Hoynes' student-centered, social-emotional learning approach to teaching has benefited the students she has taught for the past 20 years. In the beginning of each year, Janet spends a tremendous amount of time creating safe, joyful, and engaging classrooms. Janet's stellar work ethic set a bar at Prospect Hill. She gave unselfishly of herself in and out of the classroom, often helping to run our student government, as well as our 24 Club, and so much more. Her grade-level partner wrote, 6 years ago, I was given a gift when Janet moved to fourth grade. She is so passionate and intellectual about a wide variety of topics and found ways to share her knowledge with her students. At the end of the day, when Janet came to fourth grade, I got so much more than a grade-level partner, I was given a friend. Another one of her colleagues told me that Janet had a poster hanging in her first grade classroom that read, "It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice." This statement sums up Janet's classroom philosophy. In her room, the students learn how to work cohesively and treat each other with respect because she knows that's important not only in the classroom, but in every aspect of their life. Ms. Hoynes knows how important it is to create open lines of communication with her families. And I've honestly never seen a more detailed parent newsletter than what Janet sent home. One recent parent email I received stated, I wanted to drop you a note and let you know how thankful we are for Ms. Hoynes. I'm sure you're not surprised to hear she's such an amazing and supportive teacher. She reaches out to me proactively and discusses any concerns in such a caring and compassionate way with the ultimate goal of helping my child succeed. It is very easy to quote colleagues and parents in a retirement speech. However, I asked for input from the people who spend the most time with her each year, her students. They may be little, but their words were quite powerful. Character traits such as creative, kind, patient, and supportive were sprinkled throughout their comments. One child in her class said she is so supportive when a student misses school. She never gets mad, especially when they go on a family vacation. She thinks it's important to go on special trips and to have fun. Another child jumped in and wanted to share how patient Ms. Hoynes is. She said, especially when we may be confused or don't understand something being taught, she never gives up on us and helps us until we understand. Several boys and girls commented on how funny you are. One time, they said, we opened our math book, and there were all these boxes that made the math look so confusing. She looked at the page, pretended to scream and act frustrated. Then she handed us all Post-its and told us to cover it all up, and we all cracked up laughing. She also tells very funny stories, they said. A real favorite story was about her sister Jerry getting lost, and a police officer gave her ice cream. You can tell us about that one later. One student today asked why I was dressed up, and I said I was coming here tonight to speak about you, and she quickly jumped up and said, "You're speaking about Ms. Hoynes, you're so lucky. She's awesome." The small things you do for your students matter more to them than you know, Janet. The banner you made for the returning student was just what they needed to feel welcome in 4-H. Joining in morning meeting games, whether in the hall or outside, made them see how much you care. And in the end, your students may not remember every fact during every lesson that they learned, but they certainly will never forget how you made them feel. Janet, you may be leaving Prospect Hill, but you're also leaving behind your ethics, your values, and hundreds of enlightened students. Best wishes for your life after retirement. May you truly be proud of the work you have done and the difference that you have made in so many lives. Congratulations.
Okay. So our next retiree candidate, I discovered as we were having our little reception, he and I have quite a bit in common. Well, I guess he and his wife and son and I have a lot in common, given our musical backgrounds. He's taught music education to children in Pelham for the past 23 years. I believe at all 4 elementary schools over the course of that time. Additionally, he served as a town meeting coordinator at both Siwanoy and Prospect Hill. Whether jumping in to help a colleague or helping a teacher extend their curriculum through music, he is always a team player. I said to him earlier, of course, I gravitate towards music because that's my background. So I'm seeing the way he works with children is just amazing. And he's such a blessing. And you can see that generations of children will remember their time in his class. So I'm very proud to congratulate and recognize Eric Katz on his retirement.
It's like a marathon. Have you ever had the privilege of working with a colleague that makes you feel like you are the most important person in the room when you're talking to them? Or nothing you ask him to do for others is too much to ask? Well, for 23 years, teachers in Pelham have been lucky enough to work with that person, and his name is Eric Katz. I can remember when I started in Pelham 5 years ago, and he sat in my office. He met with me to tell me everything he does. So it was a pretty long meeting, and I think I had like a deer in headlights look, and he just looked at me and he's like, "You're gonna be fine." And I actually believed him. I was like, it's the first gig as principal, but he said I'm gonna be fine, so I'm gonna be fine. It is an absolute honor to speak about you tonight. Eric has taught for 31 years, and for the last 23 years in Pelham, he could always be seen with a smile on his face and a banjo over his shoulder while carrying his portable keyboard from class to class. He is literally the definition of a one-man band. Mr. Katz did not care if he was teaching music in the auditorium, in a tiny basement classroom, outside on our school grounds, or on a Google Meet, as long as he was sharing the gift of song to the students of Pelham. Eric's enthusiasm for everything he does is unmeasurable. He is the master of having many projects going on simultaneously. Concerts, over probably 120 in his career. Many plays. He used to do a 2nd grade play. When we started with FLES, he joins with our teachers and did a play in Spanish with music. Countless town meetings. Town meetings was interested. He had to sit in my office with myself, Dr. DeSoy, and Kate Alex, and we're not an easy crew. So we would start to plan, and Eric would sit there, and we would throw a million ideas at him, and he would just look at us, and where anyone else would be like, "What did you just say?" He'd say, "I got this, let me get back to you." And he'd put it in the perfectly presented presentation, all of our thoughts captured, just sat there and took it all in and made it happen. And if you think that's all he did, he also did many other things: special video projects, annual field trips to Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, musical montages, and of course, graduation performances. And of course, who doesn't look forward to the yearly holiday sing-along? Eric, I'm already exhausted reading about all your accolades. And the fact that you are cool as a cucumber juggling all your projects is always more impressive. One teacher wrote, Eric has the ability to reach an audience. One time he donned a mask and a cape as Captain Conga at town meeting while teaching the habit of mind metacognition. Eric's desire to make every child feel included is evidenced by his Welcome New Prospect Hill Students video, where he films every single child who's new to a grade, as well as the entire kindergarten. He has a friend introduce the newcomer and records the whole class dancing to the new child's favorite song. He even included me in the video my first year. And he shows the 5th graders when they're leaving what they did as kindergartners, which is always so fun. Eric never missed an opportunity to make every child feel special. During hybrid learning, Eric invited the students who were learning from home to play their instruments or sing a song, while the in-class learners watched on the smartboard. He also never missed an opportunity to sing happy birthday to a child on their special day. Perhaps one of my personal favorite events, planned and implemented, is the end of the year dance festival. Every June, the entire Prospect Hill family gathers to watch each grade sing and dance with their classmates, while parents, grandparents, families, and friends cheer them on and sing along. And then, of course, the tradition of the 5th grade always looks forward to, the maypole dance. While the dance festival is sure to be one for the record books, this year's spring concert was beyond memorable. When Mr. Katz's 5th grade class finished their performance, The kids were not ready to say farewell to their beloved music teacher and wanted to keep singing. I'm not sure if you know this or not, but they finished the concert, the parents took pictures, they were supposed to leave. They stood on the stage and re-sang the entire concert. I think you had to go teach, but they just didn't want to leave. So to say that they didn't want to leave and there wasn't a dry eye in the room was the truth. Recently, when practicing for the 4th and 5th grade concert, Eric asked the kids if they had any questions. They obviously haven't had a concert in a few years, so he said, does anyone have any questions about tomorrow? One child raised their hand, not because they had a question. They said, I just want to tell you, you're the best music teacher. And I think that says it all. Eric, we certainly think of you every time we sing our school song that you helped to write. And on behalf of all your colleagues, thank you for putting song in all of our hearts for so many years. Enjoy the next verse of your song. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words. I just want to share 2 thoughts. The first is about our former superintendent, Dr. Wilson, who sadly passed away a few weeks ago. Dr. Wilson was a great guy and a wonderful superintendent. He hired me in 1999. I always found him to be approachable, personable, compassionate, and kind. Dr. Wilson seemed to care about every human being connected with this district, every staff member, every teacher, every family, and every student. So I wanted to share a quick story that illustrates this quality. My family is deeply involved in house building for the poor. A few years ago, I organized a house building trip to Shreveport, Louisiana. I was to lead a group of volunteers to help build houses for disabled veterans over spring break. Well, that winter we had several snow days, and we had to give back the first 2 days of spring break. As I was the leader of this volunteer work, I couldn't miss the trip, but I couldn't miss school. Teachers Association suggested that I write to Dr. Wilson to ask him what to do. So one morning I wrote an email to Dr. Wilson. About an hour later, I was teaching a 2nd grade class when the phone rang in my classroom at Prospect Hill. Hello, Eric, this is Charlie. Are you Jewish? Yeah. That's great. I said, huh? Those are the first 2 days of Passover. You can take them off as religious leave. Have a great time in Shreveport. Thank you for your service. Click. So that's just an example of Dr. Wilson's kindness. When he retired, he left some big shoes to fill, and I just want to say that I honestly feel that Dr. Champ has filled those shoes well. And I'm leaving, so I have no reason to flatter the boss. But I want to acknowledge that I feel the same way about Dr. Champ as I feel about Dr. Wilson. I know for a fact that she sincerely cares about every person connected with this district, every staff member, every teacher, every family, and every student. I've observed how she skillfully balances and juggles the needs of everyone in the district and does so with compassion. In particular, I'm grateful for the regular communications she sent out during the height of the COVID crisis. They were very reassuring, and I feel helped us to steer this tremendous ship to calmer waters. So I thank you, Dr. Champ, for your leadership. The second thing I want to say is just that I'm grateful to my colleagues, both in the music department and in the elementary schools, for inspiring me to be a better teacher every day. In my time here, I was able to take advantage of opportunities to bring special things to our students, such as town meetings, folk dance festivals, field trips to places like Carnegie Hall and the Apollo Theater, NYSSMA festivals, All County Chorus, faculty performances that we did things like Peter and the Wolf, the wonderful Pelham Music Festival, and others. The reason I did these things was just to keep up with my hard-working colleagues. When I saw things like Mrs. Abe's House's trips to Broadway, Cam Whitford's high school band world tours, spelling bees, the Harvest festivals, Mr. Orifice's incredible shows such as West Side Story and A Chorus Line, Mr. VB's trip to New Orleans, field days, wax museums, kindergarten galas, and all kinds of ambitious performances, I was inspired myself to do all I could to bring excellence to our students. So I'm grateful for the opportunities and support I receive from our administrators and the community, and I remain in awe of and grateful to my excellent colleagues in the Pelham schools. Thank you.
Music teachers are a hard act to follow. All right, so moving up a level, our next candidate for retirement tonight came to Pelham Middle School in 2004 after a career as an attorney, which explains now I understand why he's also a notary, something I learned very recently. Kevin hit the ground running and has brought many creative programs to the middle school. He's known to be an outstanding math teacher. He will be a huge loss to our middle school, and we wish him every happiness in retirement. And I know Miss Sabia is going to come, and I invite Kevin up to be recognized. I think she's got a lot more in store for recognition for Kevin tonight.
So, as Dr. Champ said, Kevin began his career as a civil litigation attorney for 18 years. So that did prepare him to meet with our 8th grade. And he's needed that, especially this year. The day he was sworn in as an attorney, he actually had to appear in court that day. So talk about hit the ground running. He began his teaching career as a leave replacement in Blindbrook. And came to Pelham Middle School in 2004 as the 8th grade math teacher. He's taught Math 8, Algebra, and AP Statistics. Kevin is one of the steadiest guys you'd ever want to meet. Nothing seems to get him flabbergasted, especially, I guess that's all the being in court, because this must be kind of easy compared to that. When Kevin was asked, why did you change professions? And he said that he wanted to work with people more mature and responsible than those he represented in court. True story. Kevin has been a valued member of our school community. He chaperoned our past trips to Frost Valley, coached cross country, and brought the trout into the classroom program in the middle school. Did you know that Kevin is also a movie star? He was in a Kodak commercial, and his adventure racing team was featured on the television show The Echo Challenge. Now, that's pretty amazing. You didn't know I knew that, did you? Kevin is creative. He's one of the most creative teachers. The students talk about him all the time. He brought the Escher Tessellation Project to the middle school. MC Escher is an artist, and Kevin used his form of artwork to teach transformations to his students. He also brought a software program, the Geometry Sketchpad, to the middle school. Students describe him as tough, kind, creative, fun, but most of all empowering. Even if you don't like math, you like it when you leave Mr. Kloon's class. His colleagues describe him as the go-to guy for all things, whether it's fixing the copier, free legal advice, or the district notary. He's always willing to drop anything he's doing to help a colleague. Kevin, it's been my pleasure to work with you in the middle school. I think we'll see him next on House Hunters, as he is hunting for a house. I wish you the best of luck in your new chapter, and you will be sorely missed.
Sabia, don't go far. Our next retiree began her teaching career in 1993 at Hutchinson Elementary School. She has taught grades 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Became a reading specialist, K-5 at Hutchinson while she was there, and then she came to the middle school in 2009 as a 6th grade teacher. Not only has she committed her professional career here, but it's been a family business because all of her children also attended the Pelham schools. We're very pleased to invite Katie Pettis to be recognized tonight.
So we officially had our last faculty meeting today where I got a little choked up and then I had to tell myself, you're the principal, you cannot cry in school. So, as Dr. Champ said, Katie began her teaching career in 1993 as a first grade teacher at Hutch. There, Katie created a school-wide Hutchison Publishing Center, served as the curriculum coach, and participated in the school playground committee. Now, that's a committee I want to be on in the future. Katie also served on the school-wide math and ELA committees, as well as the district ELA committee. She created new reading and math initiatives and parent workshops in math, ELA, and writing. She organized school-wide author visits and wrote a grant to start the Summer Stars program, and in 2001 became the reading specialist K through 5. Katie's career really took off in 2009 when she came to the middle school as the sixth grade reading teacher. While at Pelham, Katie was trained in the Wilson program, created an English enrichment class for all our sixth graders, helps out with the sixth grade famous Bagels and Lox transition program, is a valued member of our site-based council. Katie's also co-created new summer reading programs for the sixth grade, and collaborated and designed a number of new IB units in ELA, which includes the Mystery Unit, the Paperclips Project, and the sixth grade literature circles. She takes the sixth grade to the elementary school every year for the fairy tale projects and the read aloud to second and third graders. Katie's colleagues describe her as extremely hardworking, loyal, and creative. Her students describe her as really smart, helpful, and fun. She helped me like reading, even when I didn't think I was able to read too well. Katie's involved in the community at large. You can see her at sporting events, plays, and just always around the middle school. We will miss Katie terribly. We wish her much happiness and relaxation as she begins her well-deserved retirement after completing her 30th year in Pelham Public Schools. Wow. Congratulations, Katie. I'll go on my toes.
Congratulations. Our next retiree this evening, we're proud to recognize, started in Pelham in 1999 as a lunch monitor. She spent the rest of her career, though, as a monitor in special education. She's the most patient, kind, and strong person. She is so competent in her position, and she's also just a wonderful person. So I'm very pleased tonight to recognize Ms. Marianne DeSarmo to come forward and invite Rosemary Matthews to come and share a little bit more about Marianne.
Marianne, this is really an honor for me. I guess that's why I came back. You know, everywhere you go these days, you see signs about being kind, as if this is a new concept. Well, obviously, those people never met Marianne DeSarmo. She's been sprinkling kindness in our school system for 22 years, and she has proven that you can be kind, you can be caring, and you can still have a real strength and integrity and really make a difference in a child's life, even our most vulnerable kids in Pelham. Marianne, as Dr. Champ said, she started in 1999, and then she quickly joined the special ed team. I think the team stole her, and then never let her go. I came on board soon after and knew the moment I met you, Marianne, that you were just a gift. Marianne, your kind, your calm, and your caring approach was what all kids needed. So we purposely sprinkled you throughout the Hutchinson School building, and you know we did. You especially enjoyed bringing the special needs students into the general ed classrooms, and very often you might have found yourself with a student that needed that very special touch. And I'd find you when walking them around the building sometimes, every now and again. Marianne worked with many special and general education teachers throughout the years. Current colleague Nicole Calandrillo said she'll never forget how when she first met you, you made her feel like she was part of the family from the moment you met, and you helped her set up her first classroom, and you still do that with her every year, so she appreciates that. Whether you were assisting on a movement break for kids or simply just being a mom, by giving a child a quick pep talk, Marianne was always there. She's the creative class artist who can make anything out of nothing, a jack of all trades, and the voice of reason all of the time. With a calming presence in the classroom, you show equal kindness and compassion toward children and the adults. Principal Tricia Fitzgerald shared how happy she is for Marianne, but she's pretty sad that you're leaving. Tricia remembers when she first arrived at Hutchinson, every classroom teacher wanted to describe you and tell her that you were just an angel. So Tricia will tell you now that she knows what everyone meant. Whenever you need help, Marianne is there with a smile. And everyone I talk to says that about you, and of course I know that for the 13 years that we worked together. The number of students that she has touched is incredible. These are all Tricia's words. Hutchinson was lucky to learn and grow alongside Marianne. So I recently asked Marianne what made her stay so long in her monitor position. She worked in the city in textiles for 10 years and had other positions, was home with her family as well, and she answered immediately, because I love it. I love being able to be with children and be a helping hand to them. They're so innocent, and I get such joy in listening to their stories when they open up to me. But I have to tell you that they open up to you because of who you are, Marianne, and that's why we had you with so many of our students. They needed you, and Hutchinson School needed you. You told me your time at Hutchinson was so wonderful, how everyone treated you with such respect. But again, they treat you with respect because that's how you treat them. And you are an equal, just as you said that you felt in Hutchinson. That is no surprise. Everywhere, everyone talks about you with the same words, kind, caring, and respectful. Your title in Pelham certainly does not define the value you bring to your school community, your families, your students, and your colleagues. After 45 years in a total working career, not just here, you deserve the time to be there for your own family. You have your beautiful family here today, and then especially to be with your grandchild, Oliver. I know you're going to love that. You will be missed by all, but you will forever leave that imprint on all of the lives that you have touched in Hutchinson and in the Pelham community. Congratulations.
Okay, just one more quick recognition, then I think we're going to want a group picture. Yes, so you can't go celebrate quite yet. We have one more retiree. He's not able to be with us tonight, but I did want to take a moment just to recognize him, and that's Mr. Michael Danielle. At retirement, Mike will have served 25 years in the Pelham 20 years in the Pelham Public Schools. In his time, he was a custodian here at Pelham Memorial High School, and he takes great pride in his work. He's always willing to pitch in and help as needed. He will certainly be missed, and we wish him and his family a long and healthy retirement. And since he's not here tonight, Jim, I'm going to give you the gift, if you would be so kind as to make sure Michael gets that. Great. Thank you so much, and congratulations to Michael. Congratulations to all of our retirees. All right, and Dr. Garcia has the substitute teaching forms for you to fill out. So if you wouldn't mind just coming up for a quick photo, we'll have the group. And if principals, supervisors, anyone wants to be part of that, we'll invite you up as well.
Okay. Oh,
2 rows? How do you want to?
We're gonna do it the next one, because this is like such a long night, and we did it the last one last time.
Fine, I just,
Okay.
usually it's the same night, but
Oh,
I feel so bad.
she probably knew some of these teachers. Yes, next one is definitely when we're doing it. I was thinking that we could give.
That's funny.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and like put a little thing. Yeah. And then I wasn't sure what, Vinny with the audit, I don't know, or just, and Leah.
That's right, you control the mics, my friend.
Yeah. Just give him one of these.
I've
All
got
right.
people texting.
What period?
First.
And lacrosse has gotten punted to tomorrow because of the rain delay.
Oh, really?
But they're winning 6-0, but
They resume?
they're
I guess
resuming
they re-
tomorrow at 5, I
That's
think.
a bummer.
First, I think.
Let's lose that momentum. But it was kind of lightning quite a bit.
Yeah, that was quite a
If
storm.
this was any indication.
Okay, we're back.
Up
We're
there.
back in action. So next is 4.4, which is Board of Education Committee reports. I do have one for authentic learning, but I didn't know if there are any others.
I had,
Finance committee.
Finance? Okay, you guys
I
go
had audit,
first.
but I'm gonna push audit to next week if you don't mind. We had it this morning.
Yeah, take some time to digest.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I'm tired.
to crunch numbers. Okay, finance.
John is going to do the honors.
Yeah, we had a great meeting. It was short and sweet.
Excellent.
Is that all you got?
So is your speech.
You're
I know, we
really
talked-
making a show in your last couple meetings here, John.
What's that?
Really making a show in your last couple meetings.
We talked about fund balance projections. We talked about tax cert report. We talked about reserve fund reviews. We looked at end-of-year reserve allocations and the impact of GASB 87 update. For people who are not familiar, GASB is a accounting standard applied to public entities, governmental agencies. There's some new rules that affect us. Talked about how not to get in trouble with the IRS. Basically, that was the extent of the meeting. Anything you want to add, Jim?
No, thank you. And I know I shared with the board other information, some of which was part of the Finance Committee meeting, and that dealt with those items of reserves and fund balances. And that's part of final resolutions we'll bring to the board at the next end-of-year board meeting in preparation for the external audit, so that we can close the books for next year, or for this year in next year.
You have anything to add, Vinnie?
No, I think you said it all, John.
Any other committee reports? Okay, so we had an Authentic Learning Committee meeting on the 20th of May. We also have our last one this Friday, so I did double headers. I'll have a report on that at the next meeting. But it was a really great meeting. We had the chance to hear from Kate Alex, who runs the Summer Stars. I almost wanted to call it. I wanted to call it Superstars for some reason, but we'll call it Summer Stars. It was actually really cool to hear Miss Pettis was involved in creating that.
I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I didn't either.
First grant for that.
We had her as a 6th grade teacher, but that's pretty cool that she was involved in its inception. So we got to hear about, so it's a 5-week program. We got to hear about what a day looks like in this program. We got to hear about the phonemic awareness programming that happens there and how nuanced the interventions are in the program now, even more so than ever before. And it is typically a program that's it's at Hutchinson this year, but it's mainly with the students.
From Hutchinson.
Yeah, from
But
Hutchinson.
it is, we do also identify students in the other schools, invite them
Yeah.
as well.
And it was interesting to hear that seems like maybe 50% of the students who qualify actually take
Yeah,
advantage of the
participate.
program.
Yes.
So anyhow, that was an interesting update. I know it's something that we talked about at some of our board meetings. Also really exciting was the ENL update. So Ms. Gashi, who got tenure at some point in our time.
About 3
since
years,
it-
about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
Her
yeah.
second tenure.
Her
yes.
second tenure
Yes.
because she is in a new certification. So she was able to share, parents a lot of times ask about like what are PLCs, like what are the teachers really doing? And it was such a great opportunity, you know, on the board we see a list of what these projects are. Such a great opportunity to hear about one that's, you know, been worked on all year. So basically, Ms. Gashi has created a program, and the board got the opportunity to hear a link to these testimonials, but she's doing these testimonials with students in the ENL program to share their stories. And the one that we got to hear that she shared was so moving about a student's experience and, you know, what they faced coming into the schools, what skills they had. And she's reading something that she wrote. It was really powerful. So I haven't had the time to go and look at all those testimonials, and we all have that in our update from Dr. Garcia this past week, but it was really an important project to have their student voices heard. And it's not something that we think about all the time. Like, we know we have a variety of students, a lot variety of backgrounds and needs, but it was just a segment of our population that I think we don't hear from as much. So it was really important. Then we also talked about the social studies textbook in 5th grade, because we have a new textbook that's been selected because our current contract has expired. And some of the board members and I had the opportunity to stop in with Miss Maria Thompson, who took the time, was very generous right before the holiday weekend, and share with us the textbook. But just showed that it's been this year-long process. And that there was a review committee, and, you know, the benchmarks that they use to select a textbook, and how they select 3 of the top ones rise to the top, and then they pick one. So that was a great meeting all in all, and I'm looking forward to our meeting on Friday, where you'll be giving us updates on the data dashboard.
Yes.
And
So should I roll right into my little
you certainly
speech?
could.
And
Are
should I
you?
just briefly talk about it?
Yeah, sorry.
Could I just add one thing?
Please,
Steve,
of course.
before I do? Sorry. So I agree, Jess, that really was a great meeting and we learned a lot. I just wanted to say that Ms. Gashi herself is an immigrant, and I think she shared a little bit of her own story, and I can imagine that is very meaningful to her students in a way that she can connect with them. So I was glad that she shared that with us. And I also wanted to echo your thanks to Dr. Thompson. I learned a lot about history as it is taught in 5th grade, and had the chance to look at the textbook and the other materials that go with it, as well as learn about the other choices that they had considered. So thank you to Dr. Thompson, and to you, Steve, for also being there and answering questions.
Yeah, and, you know, it was going back to the ENL part, and I'm hoping that.
And fill in anything I missed. I'm just
No,
sort
no,
of-
no,
yeah.
no, it was great. Thank you for the update, because I think it was pretty thorough in terms of what we discussed. I know Ms. Gashi's been asking for, you know, just sharing more information with the board and the public about it, so maybe next year.
I would love that.
Some of the board can consider in terms of like different work sessions. I mean, a few topics, like one topic could be about the ENL experience. Yes, it is a small population. Since I've been here, it hovers around 30 students a year, but we have students who come in and also leave. But the languages has actually changed. It's not, you can't say it's one predominant world language that they're speaking, which makes it also unique and kind of challenging for the district in terms of services. But you know, she moved into that role a few years ago from the classroom because she felt obviously that's part of her history, personal history, and she wanted to, you know, really kind of branch out in terms of her experiences in helping children. So I think she's done a great job of that. But that's one topic we want to consider probably next year as a discussion. Another, as you mentioned, you know, with the literacy program, the elementary school, and talking a little bit more about the phonemic awareness and the phonics approaches that we have here, not just solely relying on TC, but also looking at, you know, different word study programs. That could be another topic. I know we discussed literacy, I'd say about 2017. Maybe we had a work session on it, so it could be another opportunity to discuss it further. And also looking at this Friday, we're going to have Dr. Callahan come and talk about the science research continuum, the great success this year, but also how it bleeds down to the middle school and also the elementary school level. And then I'll have John Sabalos join us, talk a little bit about technology, but then our update right now, where we're at with looking at data dashboards and some recommendations as we move forward, hoping to implement the product for next year. So looking forward to that meeting on Friday, and then we'll talk about it, I guess, on the 15th.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Just one more thing, can I just one more?
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't mean to say,
Whatever you need.
Just one thing, is that I know there was some news about the canceling of the U.S. history regents. I know that was, many high school students were impacted by that, but it's been communication about that by the school, from the school. We were caught by surprise. Apparently there's, the test usually is developed about 2 years ahead of time by teachers in the state. I've done that before. I volunteered, let's say about 20 years ago, actually, when I was a social studies teacher, to go to the state and help write questions. I know Dr. Thompson's been part of that as well in the past. But apparently there was a question on the test, and we haven't seen it. I don't know if we'll ever see it, but they thought that based on the unfortunate events up in Buffalo, that maybe there was maybe some inappropriateness to it. Those are my words, but maybe there would be too much of a shock to it. So we don't know the question, but the state did cancel that Regents, and then it's up to local determination for how students should receive credit for that class, which has happened in the past with the recent cancellation of recent exams due to COVID. But the unfortunate thing is that this was the first year this new U.S. History Regents was going to be administered, and different format, different expectations, different types of questions, but the teachers really didn't get to see it. So hopefully they'll release parts of the test so that we can learn from it as well in preparing our kids for the future exams. And that was supposed to happen actually today, right? June 1st, which is unusual because usually the exams are later in June. Yeah. But because it's a new type of test, that's how they do it. They test it out. They also get they have to develop the rubrics and see kids and how they answer the questions. It is unfortunate, but hopefully we'll be back in line again for next year. And hopefully we'll learn from it, like why was it canceled? And then we'll be able to share that with the community as well.
Are the teachers then having to create a final exam?
Yeah, they're going to have to create their own assessment, right? And they'll determine that, they've been working on that. But they were upset. But because they were working towards it, and the kids were working towards it. And since it's such a new experience, there hasn't been such a, just different models, and there haven't been test questions, authentic questions, to really prepare students on. It's all been what we think is going to happen, which is always kind of a guessing game, which is unfortunate. So hopefully, like I said,
it off another year.
Yeah, it's another year, and it's also part of the and I've mentioned this before, the community, but also with the board. The state has, changing their types of tests. It's going to happen with ELA and math in 3 through 8, and it's going to happen. It's filtered out through the Regents as well. So we're going to see that over the next 3 to 5 years.
Thank you.
So,
Just
yes.
to go back to the point about reading instruction, and I was really happy to see that there are actions being taken in terms of phonics and phonemic awareness, and to kind of beef that up even more, especially in kindergarten, first grade. And we don't have to hash it all out tonight, but it's something to think about going forward. But some of the other criticisms that have been raised about 3Qing, which I've seen with my own kids, the leveled readers versus decodable readers, and how that fits into phonics instruction. I think there's things to think about.
Yeah, there's more things to discuss, right? And there's more things to learn about it as well. And I think one thing that's important, the lesson, is that you shouldn't really solely rely on one approach, right? So, and I don't think Pelham has in the past, but also currently. There is a strong push to make sure that phonics and phonemic awareness is part of the program and as part of the development of the reader. And I think that has been established over, let's say the past 10 years, but even look at new programs like the Hegarty program that we've seen. And we're going to implement more into kindergarten, first grade as well next year. That's important. It's also important for parents to know about that, right? So we have to communicate that as well a little differently, and making sure the kids have the experience that's pretty deep, but also it's appropriate for them. But I don't want to ever say that, like I've mentioned this before in my time here, it's like we know the right answer. We don't know the right answer, right? We're still learning it, and if we have to make adjustments along the way, make adjustments along the way. And that comes from personal experience as a parent as well, right? Where I've been to a place where my kids didn't get like the phonemic awareness or phonics program. And it shows. And I think that that's an obligation we have to the children in this district to make sure they have that experience as well.
So
I do just to
Sure.
say something positive. I know my kids do have a love of reading and choose to read, which always blows me away, and I credit our teachers for developing that. So,
thank you.
I just want to point out, I mean, this issue only came to the forefront because of a headline in the New York Times last week. But it was a hotly debated issue 15 years ago?
Sure, yes.
20 years ago?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, there was a lot of debate, there was a lot of discussion in the school board. And the district chose not to take one side or the other. It always had a balanced approach. And, you know, over time, people forget those arguments and disputes. But it's interesting because of that article at times that it's now coming back into discussion.
Sure.
I don't think we've actually changed anything we're doing, or I don't know if we would change anything we're doing. I'm sure we're always exploring new options and new programs. But I don't think I think it's fair to say that the district never abandoned phonomic teaching, and it's always been part of the program. So it's just come to the fore again.
Yeah, no, it goes,
No,
it goes-
15 years ago it was a hot button
Sure.
issue.
It goes in cycles, right? And you know, and even in other districts, the same type of discussions. But, you know, there's been criticisms of TC Readers Writers Workshop. I think for the past 2 years, there's been some pretty, like, you know, hard criticisms. And there was an attempt to kind of, and I'm not going to get, I don't work for her. I don't, you know, I don't know. I can't say that this is the end all to be all in terms of literacy. But it does create, one thing I have seen is that there's that love of reading, right? That, Michael, you mentioned, right? It's that, that's hard to kind of replicate. But you have to make sure that you're not solely relying on that one program, right? You have to have other avenues because not every child is going to, I think, learn the same way. And I think we have to be flexible. And if we're not, you know, doing that well, then we have to look for ways to improve that.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, 4.6 is Assistant Superintendent's update on the whole child.
Thank you. So you'll see from Schedule D that the department's been working very hard. You have 22 pages of meetings that were finalized, 66 student records, and our goal is to get all of the IEPs sent out by the end of June. The meetings themselves have been pushed a little later this year, a lot to do with COVID illness, scheduling, lots of cancellations. But again, I want to thank everyone who's working on each of the meetings, running meetings, participating in meetings, and the collaboration with parents. They've really been wonderful discussions, and you know, I've had a lot of opportunity of running many of the meetings, and it's just been great conversations, so we appreciate that. Tracy Holtz is coming June 15th for the day. She's very excited to see some of our special classes, probably not as excited to go over the budget and projections for our grants, but she knows that in special ed, things keep running, you know, into that early July, mid-July, so she wants to be ready for what's to come. And lastly, we're fully staffed for extended school year for the special ed students, and we're excited about that. We have our teachers, our monitors, our TAs. Parents are very excited that the program is at Hutchinson. Beautiful building. They love the air conditioning, so we're excited. But unless anyone has questions on Schedule D, that's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, now we get an update from Mr. Ricky, Finance and Facilities.
Hi, good evening, and thank you. So as you heard, we did have 2 committee meetings with Finance and Audit Committee. I don't want to give up too much of Vinny's report next meeting, but we did meet with our external auditor and our internal auditors. And I'll stop right there. I'm getting the high side.
You already went too far.
It was a good meeting.
It was a good meeting, though. We met this morning at 8 a.m. With our Finance Committee meeting, again, the things that were talked about are certainly things that have also been shared with the board in full. The updated forecast, again, as you recall, the forecast shrunk a little bit from our end of February forecast to our end of April forecast. Some of those driving events, cost drivers, FMLAs, ice hockey championships, travel and lodging, success does cost. We will get some reimbursements from the section, but those are some of the costs. Access controls for buildings, Julian's Playground, repairs, homebound instruction, student services, those types of items. And certainly, it can change right up until June 30th. But again, we track those things, and then we work with our revenues as well, so to try to look at how that balances out.
So Jim, safe to say that this is more of a normal year in terms of surplus? Because, there's been a lot of
yes.
conversation about surpluses in the last 2 years, so this looks to me to be.
It's been a pretty ordinary year
Yeah.
compared to what we would see prior to COVID, yes. Also, what we shared with you is the annual reserve update on all fund balances with detailed information, and certainly encourage you to contact me if we can help answer any of those questions, and that's always provided to the board every year. I did mention Julianne's Playground, so we are halfway there, Fortunately, the spiral slide has been replaced, the zip line has been replaced. Now we're waiting on replacement of the second slide, which was vandalized, a tire swing, and then another piece that we're looking at. So we're working with the vendor and ordered, and hopefully that'll arrive before anticipated, as this one did too. So it's nice to see kids enjoying the slide and the park. In this evening's agenda, there's a couple of items. We have a change order for the interior renovation work at Pelham Memorial High School related relatively to the art room work and the existing art rooms and the new proposed art room as part of that work. We did mention it at one of our facilities committee meetings a few months back, and it's in line with what we've been told, and it fits within our budget. There are some others related to that which will be they could be handled administratively, but the board will certainly receive notifications of those once those have been finalized and approved by either Dr. Champ or myself, depending on those threshold dollar amounts.
I think it'd be helpful, I don't know if July is going to be the right time, but maybe September to get kind of an accounting of where we stand overall on those projects. I feel like now that the building is down, Prospect Hill and the high school are moving, just to get a snapshot.
I think we'll have a really good feeling then with our casework, with our site work finishing up too at Hutchinson. We know there's going to be some on the corner of 3rd and Lincoln. We know that there is some grading issues and also some issues, I guess, with retaining walls. What's going to stay, what it's going to look like when it stays there. And the architect and construction manager and the vendor are working on that now too. So that's something I think we want to try to get another facilities committee meeting either by the end of June or early July timeframe. I think if we do it before the end of the school year, it's probably better, just as far as timing and getting people.
Yes, please do that.
You're always welcome, John.
You have to apply to be on the committee.
I know, I have to apply, that's the problem. Did you mention anything about the reconstruction of the front of the high school?
Front of the high school's moving along with those stone pieces. They've been slowed, couple of reasons. I mean, we've had some testings for AP, and then we have regions coming up. When that's happening, we don't work those days.
I don't see anything happening.
So the stones are up there, and
I don't see anything happening.
2 weeks of AP exams.
It's a little hard to see. I went by on Sunday on my bike,
yeah.
and I heard people talking up there, but I couldn't, and this was Sunday.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was Monday.
Probably Monday.
It was Monday.
Yeah.
And there were people talking up there.
It's usually
I
3
could see
people,
them.
2 on the scaffold and 1 on the ground. There's probably a person on the ground you didn't see. We're trying to get them to move as much as they can, but we know it is a manpower issue and an availability issue. So there's nothing more we'd like to see than no scaffold in front of a building.
Well, the stone's available.
Stone is there, which is great. There was 1 or 2 pieces were wrong, but they've already been replaced.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Thank you.
We also have 2 items related to our CSEA unit as far as successful collective bargaining agreement, which is very nice. We had probably close to a dozen meetings with our counterparts, and we have very collaborative, meeting as far as coming to a nice agreement. I think it's a fair settlement for our partners, and very good for them and good for the district. And it's a 3-year agreement, which we're asking the board to vote on tonight, and that membership voted on it today and passed that particular agreement. Their current agreement expires at the end of this month. So that's really great news too. Prospect Hill sod is in place. The grass grew really fast and really high. People want to play on it already, and I can understand why. We still needed to knit, but again, we cut it before the weekend, and then it was cut again yesterday. So we're really keeping an eye on it. There was a lot of water thrown on it the first 2 weeks, which is why it grew so well, and then we had to let it dry out a little bit so we could actually get the equipment on it and cut it. But it is beautiful. I would agree, and the addition really looks terrific too. Dr. Champ and Ms. Carr decided to
Climb the scaffolding.
climb the scaffolding and walk in the exterior window and take a look at things. And
Were there pictures of that?
it's very nice. So the floors are in, and we're in good shape there. Obviously, safety and security is of all of our top thoughts. And in times like this, certainly we look at all of our procedures. We're pulling doors. We're doing all of those things to make sure we're following our protocols, working with our Altiris partners, getting debriefs from them on what they're hearing. Certainly, they work with dozens and dozens of school districts, so there's value to that. Working with Altiris, they'll be meeting up, and they have been meeting up with the building emergency response teams, doing the annual building district-wide safety plans and the building safety plans. And those are things that are happening all the time. So, again, it's making sure we're doing those things that we do and taking care of all of that. Yesterday was hot weather. We're doing hot weather checks, hourly checks in the buildings, make sure we're falling within our hot weather policy. And that's about it for tonight.
Thank you.
One question about Alteris. Does Alteris, I know they do kind of training and things like that, would they ever do something like an audit or some sort of review, report to, just say,
Yep.
where do we stand?
Yes.
Where could, what's good, what, is there room for improvement somewhere, or just?
Actually, yes, and that's part of their regular work. And 7 or 8 years ago, before we engaged them last year, they were brought in independently to provide an assessment and an overview and create a number of recommendations for the district, which is where we are today with our greeter stations, those man traps, and those district-wide procedures. So what they've done this year, too, is they look at our district-wide procedures, make sure we're in place. Then they look at where the state is, if anything's coming down the line, what best practices are out there, and they'll help incorporate that into what we do. So we kind of have that person who works half-time, and they provide that on-site support, usually 2 to 3 times a week. And then they've got a consultant arm to it also, where they provided some threat assessment training for our administrative team this year. Again, part of that safety and security aspect of it, to provide additional information and really to load up our toolbox as much as we can to provide those extra tools for the folks in the district.
And there are reports done annually as well, too.
The district-wide safety report is an annual
Is
report.
required.
And you'll see that either at this meeting or absolutely at the first meeting of the school year.
It feels like we do it at the reorg meeting often, right? And I
It
remember
is.
Alteris being involved in looking at the safety plan. This was the first year, right, that they were
Are you
involved
talking,
in?
there's something separate from the safety plan, or?
Well, that's the safety plan that's done annually.
Uh-huh.
And there's a portion of it that's publicly available, and then there's a portion of it that is not.
We have a forward-facing document for the district, which you'd find on the webpage, a district-wide safety plan.
Yeah, I voted on the safety plan, I remember
Yep.
that part.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
and then we have the confidential district, or building safety plans, and that's kind of what happens in the case of, what could
Yeah,
happen.
I guess I'd just like to see like a written, like if they have any recommendations for us.
Well, we see those recommendations in our safety plans,
They review it before we review it.
so that's where we see it, but we'll certainly, they're here twice, 3 times a week. They're located in this building, but also they go out to all the buildings. Other part this year, they've met with and sat down with all our administrators, sat down with them, reviewed the district-wide safety plan, reviewed the building safety plans. Are you comfortable with this? What other tools do you need? Where are you? And I think there was a real benefit in that respect, to have that one-on-one FaceTime this year and make sure everybody felt comfortable. And then also expanding the use of communications with our administrators, and also some training. So threat assessment training, certainly for our custodial staff. We did AED training, and we're always looking to expand different types of trainings. What was the other one? Not EpiPen, but the other
The
one.
to-go bags.
The go bags.
The go bags,
Yeah.
Narcan training. the glucose, yeah. So, I mean, just all of those different types of items.
And Jim, the police come in and practice in the buildings as well, right?
They do. So once a year, the Pelham Police Department, in cooperation with the Pelham Manor Police Department, they do a day of training in our schools. They also do daily walkthroughs in our schools. They're encouraged to come whenever they'd like, and that goes with our fire safety folks as well as our police folks. And when they come in, it's a friendly walk, but it's also an orientation walk for everybody. They have keys, or they have keys and access to get into our buildings if we're not here too. So, and you see a radio on my desk. One of our channels is monitored. We have a channel on our radio. Each of the public safety departments have a radio that we've provided to them on their desks, and they monitor that radio, and we do regular radio checks on that radio station. I think it's a weekly or bi-weekly check.
And how many of our, I don't know if you know the answer to this off the top of your head, but how many of the greeters and/or hall monitors that who we have on staff right now are retired police officers?
I'd say probably close to half a dozen are
Okay.
retired law enforcement. Probably, maybe 5 or 6.
Okay.
Are former law enforcement personnel. As we say, we're not looking for police officers per se, but we really like their training, their skills, their instincts, and their mindset in an emergency situation.
This is an incredibly difficult subject because what happened last week in Texas shows you how difficult it is to protect against someone who's bound and determined to get in. That person went in a back door, so any man trap or person trap was rendered useless. And there was an armed presence there, not at that point, but assigned to that school. So it just points out the difficulty of dealing with this. And, you know, we live in New York where there are more strict gun laws, but nevertheless, an 18-year-old in Buffalo was able to buy an AR-15 as soon as he turned 18. So it takes vigilance. There's no architectural solution, and I don't think we want to see armed security guards in our schools. I don't think we do. But maybe at some point in time, we would have to consider that. But I'm moving to Canada then at that point.
Well, I do remember when we had the Parkland incident. I feel like unfortunately we benefit from these sad, tragic events because it gives us the opportunity, like it happened this way at that school, and so we reflect and think, how are we doing in that form of safety? It's like a guessing game in many ways. But we did talk at great length at those table talks, and there were parents who said, what about metal detectors? What about armed?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it gets, every once in a while that topic comes up, but it just feels like ultimately Pelham has reset to that's not the vibe we want in our schools.
There
There were specific recommendations made post-Parkland that we instituted. You know, there were changes that were recommended that we made, you know, and I can't rattle them all off the top of my head, but there were, you know, door changes and there were other changes, but I agree with you. I mean, it's very difficult to cover.
We're always trying to protect from the last attack.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes up with a new way to get in. I mean, it's very frustrating. As a design professional, I deal with this. And, you know, I'm just happy that we're slowly putting in more protections in our schools. You know, but it's very hard to retrofit a 1929 building with modern, you know, person traps and things like that. It's, you know, we're doing it at Prospect. We did it at this school. We did it at Hutch. So, you know, over time, I'm sure we'll do it at the other schools too. But it's very hard. It's very hard.
And our cameras just monitored, evaluated, you know, buyout terrorists? Have we thought of possibly adding more? Do they review the whole process? How often are they doing that in light of the events? Is it part of their soon-to-be plan in terms of training of our monitors and greeters? Is that something that we're going to do more often than we do? Just anything that you can add, obviously, to the sensitivity. The community is looking for answers on this topic.
Absolutely, and I just think back to 5 years ago when I started here. We didn't have cameras on the front door of the high school, on the front door, the back door. And our camera system, and it was really made up of a couple of analog systems only here. And in that time, we've added a layer of exterior cameras, outward facing, at all the locations, all the schools.
That was involved in the
Those-
smart bond.
That was
right?
part of the
Yeah.
smart bond work.
But they're not monitored.
They're passively monitored. Certainly, we've got the people on the doors, and then, but we
those are
don't have an
recorded.
active person, but they are all recorded. So we've got our door monitors can certainly, they have access to the cameras on their building when that's happening. We've got our cameras, and that's something that's changed a lot, even in the last 5 years. We do have the traps that we talked about at Siwanoy. We have it at Colonial. So those are all positives that have happened in that time. We have a Raptor system, so a visitor management system, so that when people come and visit the schools, we check IDs, and we're able to see if they're on a list where they're the naughty list, and they can't come into the building. We do that for our contractors and visitors to the building. Really, everybody, any parent who's visited, they've probably noticed that as well. And these are all things that we've added to, at least Raptor's a newer system, to try to, again, add layers. And it's a matter of layering different parts of safety and security to the whole process. And a lot of it's some of the mindset too. It's wear your ID, shut your doors, do those good practices that we have.
I spoke with John Sabalos today, and we were talking a little bit about cameras, and I think he's got another tranche of smart bond money left that he'll be submitting an application for. And that, I believe the thinking is to increase the infrastructure to position us to increase the camera coverage. So I'm
That's
sure
great.
that'll be
It's great to hear.
one of the agenda items for our meeting.
Hopefully the application process will move. I think I
That
spent,
is a problem.
I sat on that
It's
committee
a lengthy
the first
process
year. I
still.
think it took my first 3 years for the
It-
cameras to
there was
arrive.
quite a review process at the state.
Yeah.
There was.
We ended up with a new technology director by the time.
I think we went through
And new
two
technology.
technology directors.
And new technology. The technology was almost antiquated.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So actually, the meeting is tomorrow, if I remember correctly, right? The
Sorry.
The safety meeting, that's tomorrow?
No, we're meeting, high school team, we're meeting next week. I don't think we
Okay.
have one for tomorrow.
Okay, sorry.
Yep,
But we should come back with an update
yes.
next time.
For our next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, next section, is communications and comments from the public on items that relate to the agenda. Anybody? Okay. Next is section 6, financial reports and motions. Vinnie, you're gonna like this one. I'm gonna take a consent of 6.1 to 6.10. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second?
Second?
Thank you. Okay, so this encompasses
Have to
our
vote?
budget transfers, in a minute. Treasurer's report, our BOCES, contract for next school year, some memorandums of agreement, with different, units in the district, some change orders, and disposal of obsolete textbooks. Any questions or comments?
I just wanted to say thanks to Jim and to the clerical unit for great work on coming to a new revised contract agreement. So I know, as he mentioned it earlier, but just want to thank him for his efforts and thank them for their efforts as well. A great unit, and
They are.
they deserve their
Really dedicated group
recognition.
of folks. We're very
We
fortunate.
appreciate all of their work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of negotiations this year.
Yes.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, 6.11, I'd like to take a motion to accept a donation.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So we have two donations. My eyes are getting blurry. One is a donation of a clock for the outdoor classroom at Siwanoy Elementary School, and that gratitude be bestowed upon its donor, the Siwanoy Elementary School 5th grade class of 2022. Where's that clock going or is it already in place?
Not yet, but it'll be on the outside of the building.
Right on the outside, by that back door entrance?
I believe so.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. And also, the Board of Education does hereby accept the donation of $1,000 to Pelham Memorial High School for monetary awards for the 2022 graduating class, and that gratitude be bestowed upon its donor, Compass McClellan Real Estate. Very generous and kind. And as it is, we just approved some costs related to graduation, so I know that will go a long way.
I think this is the first year. Is this the first year? Jim, remind me, that the parents senior parents did not have to do fundraising
That's
for
correct.
the tents, the risers, the chairs,
Done
the
that
setup.
many years, yeah.
So thank
So,
you.
We are very
parents that
excited
now
to
will
be
not
able to
have
do
to do
that.
that.
Yes, well, and it's being used by all the elementary schools and the middle schools.
We'll be
to
hosting,
graduation and
yep,
stuff.
all those moving ups that week will be occurring, so really
Which is pretty
excited about
cool.
that. Yep.
Any questions or comments on the donation? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Section 7, Superintendent's Personnel Recommendations. I'd like to take a consent of 7.1 to 7.5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Sue. A second?
Second.
Thank you, John. Anything you want to add, Mr.
Well,
Ricky?
we started the hiring process, so we're going to see some people being appointed tonight for next school year. Many of them have actually served as lead replacements, or some people who served in
See some
positions this year.
familiar names.
Some familiar names,
great.
and which is great, because people who worked with us in the past, or for a year or so, they really get to understand our school district and our plan and our program. So it's just the beginning of the hiring season, but we're happy to have them on board.
And then we're recommending the addition of many of our summer seasonal custodial workers, which are many of our students. It was a completely oversubscribed application process, and
It's a great
Really?
yeah.
It's amazing.
But certainly, unfortunately, we weren't able to take, we weren't able to take about, we took about half of who applied.
Really?
Yeah.
We're paying too much.
We pay minimum wage. So really, I mean, with folks who worked for us last year and were successful, I mean, it wasn't a lot. So unfortunately, we would have loved to have taken more. They're also great workers to help us get our building in shape for next year, and I think it's a really good moment for our students to understand what it takes to get our buildings in shape and work with our custodial group. So we'll put them to work. We'll make them tired every day, and they'll love it too. And we do have an alternate list, and if some kids decide it's not for them, we certainly have that list, and we have some numbers that we can go to and call some of those kids on our alternate list if the availability makes itself available.
I was just going to add, I want to thank the administrative team has been working on overdrive to do the hiring. And this is always a tough time of year because we're wrapping so much up. There's so many great events, there's things going on, and then on top of that, just a tremendous amount of interviewing to really get that high caliber. So thanks to Dr. Garcia. I think Ms. Matthews has probably been involved in a little bit of this too, but also the administrative team. So I really appreciate that. And also want to just point out, as we work to implement the budget that was approved tonight on this, we also have the creation of the new positions from within the administrative restructure.
Okay, any questions or comments on section 7? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Section 8 is People Personnel Services. As we heard, we have a long list of Schedule D. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Section 9 is new business.
I had mentioned to the board in a memo, just the topic of tuition students. In the past, before COVID, we somewhat regularly were accepting, we get requests on a very regular basis, at least weekly basis. The high school and the central offices are getting 1 to 2 phone calls a week. Families looking to tuition their children in. Maybe they're living in neighboring schools and are attracted to our schools because of our programs and the reputation of the school. So we had we had really reduced and eliminated that a little bit before COVID because of enrollment. COVID, certainly, we had, with spacing issues, we were not going to bring anyone in that, we didn't want to add to what was already here. But now that we're opening back up, we're back to normal distancing. As I've shared with the board, there's been a couple exception requests. I guess my question for you is just quick thoughts on how wide you think we should consider that, or if we should still keep it relatively restricted. Certainly, every time we have a request, we look at, does it create an extra section? Does it going to, is it going to cause us, is it going to add cost to the district? And generally, our answer is no when that is the case. Just wanted to see your thoughts on that.
Are they evenly distributed grade-wise?
Not necessarily. Predominantly, we've only been accepting secondary level. One of the recent exceptions, I did say yes to an elementary because it's a family who's already in our schools. They had an elementary child, and actually would be less transition for the family for the child to stay and finish out through our schools. But generally, it's been the secondary level. They tend to sprinkle out across the grades.
Right, I would think that would have less impact on class size and things like that.
Exactly, which is why it's been easier to absorb at the high school level. Tuitions are $19,000 to $20,000 per student.
It's good revenue.
Yeah, we vote on that every year, right?
You do.
So why wouldn't we take more? I know there's a pervasive feeling in some parts of the community that, we have all these extra kids in the classroom, and that's has a negative impact, but it's really not true. I know that's an impression out there because I get questions about it every year.
Yeah. And this year, in staffing the schools, we really wanted to try to get our class sizes down a bit. So we asked the administrators to use it. We're still within our guidelines, of course, but use maybe a little bit lower bar than we had in prior staffing, which is part of why we added so many overages at the secondary level. So, where there's space, I tend to agree. Our number's going to be a little bit better. Room utilization is always going to be our issue because we know that we're really over capacity from that perspective. But if it's not impacting actual additional sections, that doesn't make that room utilization problem any worse.
But this doesn't include children of teachers and staff.
Yes, they're already they are by contract.
Right, but
we've never.
So these numbers
restricted
don't
that.
include that?
Correct. We usually produce a report once a year. Jim's office is really great about tracking that staff, children, and general tuition students. So
I feel like that's always in the
So you're right,
enrollment
Jim. You're
updates.
right.
There's a column for
Yeah.
that, right?
Yep, yeah.
You'll see that in the fall.
I've been told by people outside Pelham that it's a big draw for staff, especially custodial and other,
Nurses.
other staff of that nature. That's a big draw to Pelham.
Yeah.
Because they get, wherever they're coming from, it's such a step up for their kids.
Right.
And it's benefited us tremendously.
Agreed.
Yeah, if it doesn't create a capacity issue, which I don't believe we have right now, it's ebbed and flowed quite a bit in 5 years since we've been monitoring this, and the conversations kind of swung a lot of different directions, but I feel like based on what I see in terms of the enrollment numbers and the opportunity for the revenue it brings in, I'd personally be open to allowing students in.
We were at a natural point with several of the students graduating the last time that we looked at it, and that happened to be right before COVID as well, too. So those two things converged, as I recall. So it was, we were graduating a number of the tuition students, and then COVID happened, and we didn't go back, to what those numbers were. So it does seem like there's probably room on the secondary campus. But how does that process unfold? Will we get another chance to hear from you on it before it happens?
And generally the process, if I remember it from before COVID, there's a lot of institutional knowledge that's faded in 2 years. There's an application process on the website. The family would fill out the application, registration materials, et cetera. That would generally then be, there'd be an interview by the high school principal, much like if a child was applying to a private school.
Is there a criterion?
I think there's a general criteria being in good standing. They look at academic
Up to date with their
records,
credits and all,
attendance,
yeah.
credit, accrual, et cetera, and an interview with the student and family generally. And then the principal makes a recommendation to me about whether to accept the student.
Well,
And we look at class
if you
size
open up
and
that
budget.
opportunity, you're going to have a lot more applicants.
And well, we also look at class size, you know, the
No,
section
I
issue
understand that
before we-
determines how many you can take, but at some point, you've determined how many you can take, now you have to figure out who you're taking, right?
Right.
So that seems to be an interesting conundrum.
Often the first question is, do you accept, you know, students from other districts? The next question sometimes is, do you have scholarships? And sometimes that's where the conversation ends. Because
I see.
a lot of private schools do have scholarships, and we don't.
We're not a private school.
We're not a private school. We are a public school.
And is the, I guess one more question I have is, I can't remember how it worked because it's been a few years. Do they review our ability to keep that student on a year-by-year basis? Like, do they do they come to Pelham knowing that if there are capacity issues in the next year, that, or are they allowed to, we commit to them for the duration?
I have to look back at the letters. I know with staff's children, that is a caveat. Every year they re-request, we review the numbers. Placement at the elementaries, every now and then we have to move a child from one to the other. But generally, when we accept them, we kind of forecast if it's going to be sustainable. So I don't believe there is an annual request for
Okay.
tuition students, but I know that the business office certainly does. There's an annual renewal of tuition letter
Right.
that goes out.
I mean, in the past, these have normally been sort of unusual circumstances.
Yeah, we're
Right.
not talking a ton of children.
No, it's been, you know, a kid whose family moves out and they want to spend their senior year in Pelham, or something, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you open it up without having to develop a whole list of criterion for accepting people, and then that creates a whole other issue, right?
I think it exists, right? I mean, it seems like
I
there's a
don't-
process.
There's a process. I can't point to a specific rubric.
Do we still allow, what is it? Tax-paying landlords?
owners.
Not landlords,
That was a
tax-paying
policy.
Business owner.
business owners.
We revised that policy a number of years ago, and I
It was
believe we discontinued that.
3
for-
or 4 years
Yeah,
ago,
we did
where we
too.
Yeah,
discontinued the
to finish
practice.
out those who are already in the system, but we were not allowing that,
Yeah,
any
I
new
remember.
students to
Yeah.
tuition in as a result of that.
A lot of discussion around that.
Yeah.
No, I think you're
Just I know, like, for elementary parents, lower class sizes is always going to be desirable.
Preferable.
But I hear what you're saying, that's
Big
not
piece of-
really a big
Well,
elementary
no,
issue.
but that is a big piece of why we don't generally have an accepted elementary students. Really, it's the outreach is usually secondary. They're attracted to the programs at high school,
Mhm.
is really the biggest. Or in some cases, either families moving, you know, living in another community, maybe a child is not a good fit in the school that they're in. They're looking for a school environment they think would be better fit for their child, and they look at us and they see some attractive qualities. So yeah, it's not often elementary anyways, but I think even developmentally, it doesn't make sense. And you're exactly right. We want to keep our class sizes as low as possible.
I just think it opens up a lot of issues, and if we're going to if we're going to consider something like that, I think we really need to develop some guidelines and some clear criterion for accepting students, because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to administer.
Maybe we could see what Mark works with.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
what
Is
that-
Mark
what-
putting it together?
Well, it exists in the high
we
school.
haven't really done it up until now.
Yeah.
So
Okay, well,
it'll be a new process to have.
yeah. I'm
Well, to
getting
him, but-
ahead of myself.
To him.
To him, but I remember Janine Clark being very involved in these discussions.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so it's probably a little bit of research to be done to see what was in place prior.
Yeah.
My sense is it wasn't about, it was always tied to, you know, someone's a business owner or some unusual circumstances, and it wasn't.
Not always.
No?
No, we did,
I get, okay,
Yeah.
I guess I don't remember well.
But is it the principal of the school that has the say, or is it it's not the board, is it, do you have the final say in terms of, okay.
Yeah, generally the principal would do the interview, review the
Right, and
application.
and bring it to
make
your
a
attention.
recommendation.
Yeah, okay.
So I was just thinking when Jess was talking about, do we take the student for a year and then reevaluate class size after that, that it's probably very tricky to calculate with not knowing what electives somebody's going to sign up for, and some of those electives don't run, either because there aren't enough or there are too many students. But it would seem to me also very difficult to take a student, say, in 10th grade and then tell them they can't attend for 11th grade. So I kind
I
of
think you're
agree with-
committed.
I
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
agree with
I
John.
don't think we've
that it-
ever done that.
No,
from what I-
I'm
from
not
what I've
suggesting
seen.
that
Yeah.
anyone would do that. I'm saying that I think, I understand and agree with Michael's point about class sizes in the elementary, but I know we have issues with class sizes at the secondary as well. So I think, it would be a good idea to see what is written down, and I agree with John, just to think about a little bit how it plays out. It's not so straightforward.
Yeah, the more you think about it, the more
Not
things you
something
see,
to rush
more
in-
issues you
rush
see.
into.
Yeah, more information, but
Yeah.
it seems like an important thing to start thinking about.
Definitely.
Again.
All right, well, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the feedback.
Section 10, communications and comments from the public. Section 11, we're gonna have to figure out who's gonna adjourn these meetings next year.
It could
Madam
be actually
President?
wide open.
Would you entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Good night. Good luck, Ian.
An ultimate meeting.
And then there was one.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah.